Weeds grow in my garden. I look out at my plot of land and I just want to give up and let the dandelions take over. Once you see the crabgrass and the aphids, the problems just become overwhelming and apparent. Kind of like life. I see weeds where I work, where I live, and where I play. I can envision some solutions to the problems, but I want to hide from the realities of making real change. Like, I'd like to lose 20 pounds, but God, I love potato chips. Changing patterns and systems is hard work, kind of like tending a healthy and vibrant garden. The urge to spread pesticides is alluring, but it poisons the ground. Progress unfolds like the petals of a flower, slowly and with surprise. The reality of making lasting change requires a long-term commitment. As the director of student life and leadership, I've watched students give up on their projects and dreams when faced with the creeping shifts. I've also seen that they want to give up because of the unsexy work that they have to do. Some people might call it boring. And they also get a little aggravated with each other and might annoy one another. I've also observed, as somebody who teaches in the Humanities department, that new problems often germinate out of newfound solutions. But probably one of the most disheartening elements of change for the student activists is realizing that you may not be there to enjoy the fruits of your labor. The truth is, some of us sow seeds and others harvest. Grassroots activism often begins with a rally cry that resonates with a larger group of people and brings them together. Protests are exciting and inspirational. Dr. King said, "The riot is the language of the unheard." God knows I love a good march, complete with signs, songs, and slogans. A few words can ignite a crowd. Hell no, we won't go. Escucha, estamos en la lucha. We are in this fight together, a battle cry that lets the powerful know that people are uniting. Protesters use music and songs to evoke the spirit of the activists. Civil rights marchers gave voice to Charles Tinley's gospel music, "We Shall Overcome." Join me. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Human beings have been making music for thousands of years, and some bright person realized that they'd be a great tool at a demonstration. Protests, songs, and chants help sow the seeds of change, but words alone won't produce that great fruit. Long-term solutions require diligence, and this sort of work grinds. You know, I remember when I was an undergrad, I took a class in New Testament literature, and we were studying the Gospel of Matthew. And in it, Jesus is quoted as saying, "The poor will always be with you, but you won't always have me." I remember thinking, God, Jesus, you're so selfish. How could the Son of God not think that human beings could wipe out poverty? My 20-year-old self wanted results now. I understand this verse profoundly different in my older age. I realize that this isn't an excuse for the well-to-do to give up on poverty justice. Rather, it's an ongoing obligation for people to raise others up. Justice and charity are values embedded in many traditions. The third pillar of Islam asks Muslims to give to charity, remembering that generations of people have been doing this work for poverty justice gives me a sense of connection and hope for the future. Just as Frederick Douglass said, and he wisely observed too, that without struggle, there can be no progress. So what does this look like on a college campus? 6 years ago, our Queer Resource Center began demanding that there be all-gendered restrooms on campus. The initial response from the broader PCC community wasn't so positive. So slowly, a committed group of people began educating faculty, staff, and administrative groups about the pain and suffering trans people face trying to access their basic right to pee. Slowly, the ship began to turn, and we now have 46 all-gendered restrooms on our college campus, in our buildings. Despite this progress, there's still more work to be done for trans justice. The initial rejection from the broader PCC community hurt many people under the queer trans umbrella. Unfortunately, the human condition is imperfect, and shifts in culture make people uncomfortable. Radical alterations to systems to promote equity inherently create tension and create rocky relationships. So where have I seen this? Well, in one of my favorite pastimes, watching the movies. I watched a film a couple years ago called Pride, and it's a narrative that describes a real-life situation where miners who lived in the rural hills of Wales were striking. They were supported by a group of inner-city queer and trans activists that lived in London. This alliance ruffled feathers and destroyed some long-term relationships. But in the end, progress was made. Alliances are a delicate balance that resemble a fragile ecosystem and rely on some of the most unusual partnerships. Rachel Carson, the author of Silent Spring, said, "In nature, nothing exists alone." The same can be said for humanity. Alliance building requires a trust and faith in other people, and this is not an easy task. For those of us with power and privilege, it means to form an alliance, we might have to step back and let other voices take over. Feminists are slowly learning the extent to which people of color felt left out by the mainstream movement. White people often ask alter-abled people, our queer friends, and people of color to come and support our agendas and save precious little energy to help out with theirs. Intersectionality became the buzzword of the Women's March. Countless egos had to take a step back in order for other people to take a starring role. This hurt some people, but it created a healthier community that produced better fruit. So, accepting the possibility that the seed you plant won't germinate until you're gone is real. So instead of focusing on the harvest, think about what kind of seeds you're sowing. Do you sow seeds of hope, of compassion, of inclusion, of respect? Or are you establishing roots of fear, anger, or isolation? Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton spent their lives fighting for women to get a right to vote and died before they ever cast a ballot. AIDS activists urged the U.S. government to invest in a cure for AIDS, and many of those individuals died without ever seeing something occur or happen. If the people I just mentioned had given up, future generations would suffer. The struggles people face are part of the human condition. New struggles germinate out of those newfound solutions, and the actions we take have real consequences. Change is daunting. Progress moves slowly, and the journey can be painful and yield unwelcome results. But giving up is not the answer. We can't let those weeds take over. Martin Luther, a 16th century reformer, called sin, or he explained sin as inconvertius in se, meaning turning into yourself and disengaging from the world. I urge people to open their arms to the world, invite people in, let go of your own agenda, and give service to others. Luther gave us hope when he said, if the world was to fall to pieces tomorrow, I'd still plant an apple tree today. So I'd like to end with this question: what tree are you planting? Thank you.